My name is Carol Matthey, and my mother has Alzheimer's disease.
How long has your mother had Alzheimer's?
Well, that is a hard one because it's not like one day she had it and one day she didn't. But I would say that she's had it for a long time. She's 70. She just turned 78. And back when my daughter Haley was just born, so that was over 15, 16 years ago, we were already noticing things. She'd just forget things, and I always thought she was just not paying attention. She's just like, Mom, we talked about this, and when I got married in 1992, so that would have been like 19 years ago, she just seemed a little flighty. By the time it was 1995 and my daughter was born, I remember, I wouldn't have ever said that she had a problem like Alzheimer's or anything, but I didn't want her to babysit my daughter. She just didn't seem able to handle it. My dad hadn't had any experience with like caring for babies. He was just a man of his generation, and my mother didn't seem to sort of be ready if something bad happened. So I sort of thought at the time that it was just me being a nervous first-time mom. So I would say way a long time ago, when she was about 60-ish, 62, 63, long time ago.
How old was she when she was officially diagnosed?
She wasn't officially diagnosed, so that, what I just said, she was about 62 when we were noticing those things. It just got a little worse and a little worse. She was a little flightier, more forgetful. People were still attributing it to her just like kind of not paying attention or being flighty. And when our son was born, I peg everything with our kids. And so that was about when Haley, so about 2000, spring of 2000. I don't know exactly when it was. It was like spring 2000. Son was 9 months old. We kind of had to come to Jesus and made him take my mom for an evaluation. And ironically, the doctor didn't actually come. It was so Alzheimer's. But the doctor didn't come back and say Alzheimer's. And I just am still kind of pissed off at that because I think the doctors were just afraid to say something so drastic to my father and to my mother, who was still pretty cognizant at the time. So he diagnosed generalized anxiety disorder, a little depression, and mild cognitive impairment. And prescribed my mom Prozac for the anxiety and depression, and some other drug for mild cognitive impairment. And then like 6 months later, I think, so after my parents had adjusted to that, said it could be Alzheimer's. But it was so lame. It was so Alzheimer's. And I'm pissed at the medical system for that. Fake out. So it was cowardly, I thought.
What made you realize your mom had Alzheimer's?
Well, she just did. It's like things were. It was the late 90s, early 2000s. More, stuff was coming up in the news about it. It was just the start of what we're hearing about now about it being such an epidemic was just starting. But I cared for my mom so much, and she was just not herself. I mean, one of the things that made me realize it was my husband's impression of her. We met in 1990, and he never really knew my mom when she wasn't like flighty. And I had such a powerful memory of my mother as this dynamite woman who could do anything, and she was smart as a whip, and she could have a dinner party for 12 on the fly, and he just didn't have that same impression of her. And it's like clearly there's something that she was different even just when he started to know her, and it was always there. It was just growing. You couldn't deny it.
How have you and other family members cared for her?
It's hard. At first, by the time she was diagnosed, there was a lot. Well, how have we cared for her? How we could have not cared for her too. In the beginning, there was a lot of denial, a lot of ignore it and it'll go away, thinking once she got diagnosed, there was, she and my dad were already living away from us in Arizona when we were living in Minneapolis. My brothers both lived in California, so there wasn't, the kids weren't around, so it was really left to my dad, and well, he tried to keep it really pretty close to the vest for a long time and just take care of her and deal with it as much as he could for a long, long time. And then it got worse, and he kept doing that. And sort of like they couldn't do some social things that they used to do, and that circle of friends kind of fell away. But it's interesting how the circle of friends fell back to those friends that were really close friends of theirs back when they were like in college. They're like they're not their circumstantial friends, but they're deep, deep friends. Stayed around, and my dad just kept taking care of her for a long, long time. I would say a little too long.
What other kinds of care is she receiving now?
Well, for the last year and a half, she's been living in a really nice place called Silverado in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is an Alzheimer's assisted living home specializing in Alzheimer's, with just Alzheimer's patients or other patients with dementia. And I think she's getting terrific care there. I'd say for the couple years prior to that, she'd been sort of maybe needing that deeper care, but being cared for primarily by my dad with some caregivers. He was experimenting with some caregivers who came into the home, and they helped sometimes more, sometimes less.
How has your mother changed since she was diagnosed?
Oh my God. How she changed. Since she was diagnosed, wow. Before she had it, before she had it, then there's a big period from when she had it to when she was diagnosed. There's a lot of decline that happens in that before you actually confront the diagnosis. But she's a shell. You know, I hate to say that, but in some ways I've already said goodbye to my mother. In some ways it's so difficult because I love my mother so much, and you don't want to. Some parts of me just want it to be over, for her sake and my dad's sake, and not for my sake, because not for my sake at all, for my dad's sake and for her sake, because it's just, she's just a shell. It's just, she can walk around and she can have, she's so physically fit. Though I haven't seen her in about 9 months, but she still walks around. She needs assistance for pretty much everything. She doesn't recognize anybody, though she's pretty pleasant. She hasn't had some of those things that some people have where they get really aggressive or angry. She just became more meek, which was odd because I didn't remember her as a meek person. But yeah, it's like, at first it seemed like she was just getting younger, and then she started to disappear.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.